All right, Peter.
And they're off.
Here we go. Another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. We are at episode number 296. And the name of today's episode is Avoiding the Downside in Every Creative Real Estate Deal Legally and Profitably. And here, there you go. Hey, Junior. Here is the description. Are you afraid of making decisions on if a real estate deal is good or not? Maybe you are a bit freaked out on taking chances when entering unfamiliar territory. Or put your neck on the line for something you don't feel confident about or how it will turn out. Are you consistently telling yourself to be careful and doubt how right you are when evaluating real estate? Perhaps you're overprotecting yourself with very low offers and losing too many deals to the point that you actually gave up and are feeling left out. Did you ever consider this? If everybody feels fear when approaching something totally new in life, yet so many out there are doing it despite the fear, then maybe you should consider that fear is not the problem. Which is why today we are going to reveal how you can avoid and protect yourself in every creative real estate deal legally and profitably. And before we are done, I guarantee you will question what you are actually afraid of.
No, wait a minute.
Wow.
Everyone says it's the fear. It's the fear. You're saying maybe it's not the fear?
Right.
Okay, I'm listening now.
So the first thing I'd like to say is that normally, we're not doing that today, but normally we would record this podcast on a Thursday morning at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you go to Facebook or YouTube, just type in Flipping Houses for Rookies, and you can watch this episode and many others right there at your fingertips. Also, there's a link in the description. I know a couple of my coaching guys had some questions about the description, but no matter where you are, whether you're in Facebook, you're on YouTube, or you're in the podcast channel, you have to click on the section that has a description of the podcast. I mean, it's there. You just got to find it, and there's a link in there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we got a whole crew here this morning. So,
Bill, how'd they know we were here?
I sent him an email.
Wow.
So John West, I haven't heard from him in a while. John Patterson. I'm probably not supposed to tell his full name, but he used to be on my calls all the time. Says, fear is not my problem. The math is the problem. Trying to make deals work. Okay. Well, that's a whole nother podcast. There's 290 podcasts that handle that.
Yeah.
And yes, today's economy, the math is a problem. So,
yeah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So you have to find a way or find one that does.
But I'm going to
hunt further.
So here's the thing, Peter. John says the fear is not his problem. It's the math. So he's full of shit.
Yeah.
Okay, because what that tells me is the math doesn't work. So he's afraid to pay too much money because he doesn't know how to do with the deal if he's going to pay too much money. So it's really the fear. I'm picking on John because I know him and I think he can have it. But he said it's the math that's the problem. That means that he's trying to buy for too low. It said in the description, what does it say here? I'll read it again. It says, and doubt how right you are when evaluating real estate. Perhaps you are overprotecting yourself with very low offers and losing too many deals.
Yeah.
That is AKA the math. Okay. So,
Yeah.
John, hang on there, buddy. We're going to get to you. Okay. So, I want to start off today, Pete, with this. You ready?
Ready.
So many of us shortcut our living by choosing the path that is most comfortable. All this does for us is keep us staying stuck and develop the techniques for taking control out of our destiny or accomplish our accomplishments in life. So when you decide to take the path of being comfortable, you automatically assign your life to somebody else. I remember when Rocky said, guilty. He said, guilty. So here's the thing. I remember when I was taught this some years ago, for example, and I'm doing this right now, and I'm desperately trying to fix this. And John was just doing this a minute ago. Okay, it's the economy. So you're assigning the economy blame. You know what that does? As soon as you blame something or somebody else for the situation you're in, you just took away your control.
Yeah.
It's somebody else that's authoring your life for you.
Yeah, I always thought of that as cause and effect. My friend pulled that. He's an engineer, aerospace. We're talking aerospace, and we ran into something one day. I blamed him for something. Well, blah blah blah. And he goes, "Well, I can be cause, and that makes you effect."
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah. Thanks a lot, but it's true.
Right.
Don't want to be effect.
All right. So, by the way, before we get too far into the podcast now, this is not going to be another fear class today. Okay, so I just want to be clear about that. That's not my intention. What I am going to do is make it so if you knew you could handle any creative real estate deal that came your way, you would be programmed to think, what could I possibly fear? What could I possibly fear? If you do what we're talking about, what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I believe all you have to do to diminish your fear is develop more trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way.
Yeah. Well, I see you do that. Yeah.
Do tell.
Well, we've been in a lot of situations where we're just about buying a house and there's no title. There isn't one. You can't get one. It's like one of those things. Or how the heck are we going to get the plumbing over there? Or what do you mean there's no furnace? Or just whatever it is. And, you don't know what's going to come up. And you never freak out. You're not happy about it necessarily, but you ponder, you come up with a solution, you check around, you solve it, and you move on. So you just have a trust that there is a solution. I know people ask a question, they go, I don't know. I just asked you the question. Could you think about it for 2 minutes before you say, I don't know? Could you try a little bit? Just calm down.
Hey, Guido, calm down over here, would you?
I know. I just said it to myself. No, but it's true. People will just give up right away. Well, here's the thing. There always are solutions. Doesn't mean they're in front of you. You got to go find them. There's oil under your ground. There's air above you. There's air in your lungs. There's a solution somewhere. Penicillin has been around forever. Gravity's been around. Everything's been around forever.
Yeah.
You got to go look for it. Just because you don't see it, don't give up. It's there. So listen to Bill. He'll give us a few more today.
Well, here's the thing. The definition of scarcity is the lack of looking.
That's good.
Scarcity is the lack of looking. You're just not looking either in the right places or hard enough. That's the lack of scarcity, right? So if you have a scarcity of money, then you're just not looking in the right places. You're not going to the right places. Right?
It's got to be there.
Scarcity, right? So JR says aerospace is a good field. He must be in aerospace.
Yeah, we got a couple of friends in aerospace.
So let me see here. There was a side note of what you were saying I was going to talk about, but I forgot about it. So we're going to just keep moving on.
Bill, isn't aerospace the place between your two ears?
It could be. All right. So if all you have to do is diminish your fear is develop more trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way.
Mm-hmm.
I know this because when I was a little boy and my mother would send me off to school, she would not say to me, "Take a lot of chances today, Bill." It was more like, "Be careful, Billy." The only person that calls me Billy is my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, this be careful advice is really a double message.
Mm-hmm.
So one, the world is really dangerous out there and you won't be able to handle it.
Oh.
And two, what mom is really saying is if something happens to you, Billy, I won't be able to handle it for you.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, comforting salutations on the way out, huh?
Which in really, 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 really interprets back to let me get this straight. It really resonates to me as she was just passing on her lack of trust in her ability to handle what comes her way.
Oh, yeah.
So she was just kind of like, pushing that onto me. So she had a lack of trust of her ability to handle what comes her way.
Yep.
Right. So this is our listeners right now. This is our rookies. What are they afraid of? They're afraid of they aren't going to be able to handle a real estate transaction that comes their way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like, and I'm going to pick on John again. Like John is saying he can't do the math. Right. I'm going to tell you, I'm going through this with my coaching group right now, which I'm going to change very, very quickly here, because it seems like the problem is that too many people want cash right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about we're in March of 2021 for listeners later.
22.
22. Sorry.
22. Yep. 22.
I looked at my computer and saw 21. So March of 2022. So we're post-pandemic, and the idea, which is not 100% correct, but the idea is that there is not enough inventory.
Yep.
Too many people, not enough inventory. So a hot market means that you put a property on the market for 30 days or within 30 days and you get a contract or you get a buyer.
Yep.
A cold market is when you put a property on the market and it goes 90 days and you don't get a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So a hot market is called the seller's market. A cold market is called the buyer's market. But in truth, this is really what happens. A hot market means there's one house, 20 buyers.
Yep.
A cold market means there's 20 houses, one buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right now there is a lack of inventory. So I would like to put a stake in the ground right now. I'd like to put a flag on Mars saying this. Is that really true? Is that really true? Because the people that are spouting this are the realtors. And the realtors are saying there's no houses on the market. But when I asked 3 of my realtor friends, 3 of them, I asked, how did you come up with that evaluation? How did you come up with there's not enough houses on the market? What's the definition of the market is what I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of them said, well, because they go on the MLS and there's not enough houses on the MLS for them to sell. So I posed a question to them, which was simply this. Do you think that with so many buyers, if there's 20 buyers to one house, do you think it's possible a lot of people would try to sell their house without using a realtor and save the fees?
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible? Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of course that's possible. Okay, well then what about all those houses that are not on the MLS that you are saying are not on the market? They're on the market. They're just not in the MLS. So you're
Yeah.
making your evaluation that the houses are not in the MLS, but they're not on the market.
Yeah, that's like when a store's starting to do bad because people aren't going there, but they're going to the other store.
Right.
I've seen supermarkets close. How do you close a supermarket? Everybody's hungry every day, but it happens.
Right.
So no one's going to. People might not be, because I was just going to say, I'm talking to a lot of people every day, and there's
Right.
houses for sale.
Right.
They're not on the MLS. They're for sale by owners. I am seeing those.
So here's the problem. Here is the problem. And hear me loudly. This is not on my script. This is the problem that I need to solve. And you and I, Peter, are going away in a couple days. We're going to a 4-day seminar, a real estate seminar, just to chum around with people and kind of like brush up on what's going on. And because that's what we do. Every year we go somewhere and do something. And this is our time. Okay. So here's the problem. You ready? Here is the problem. And it's taken me a long time to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is advertising.
Wow.
Yep.
How so?
If you're a for sale by owner, where do you put your house for sale? How do you find your buyers?
Usually Zillow and that type of thing, right?
Not always. Some people don't want to do that. So if I have a house for sale and I'm not outflowing enough because I'm just not doing it, because for whatever reason, maybe, I mean, here's another statistic. I did this a couple of years ago, so it might be different with pandemic, but I think something like 70% of people that are selling their houses are above the age of 50 years old.
Wow.
I think it's like 73% are above the age of 50 years old.
Mm.
Okay. So here's my point. Are they computer savvy?
Hey, what are you trying to say, Bill? You're over 50.
I know. But my point is are they computer savvy? Are they going to be able to go find their buyers?
Yeah.
Right. So the dynamic of selling a house has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Because what the realtor brings to the table is finding the buyer.
Yep.
Not anything else. That's their job. They get paid their 6% or 5% or 3% or whatever deal you make with the realtor for finding the buyer. And the way they do that is they put it on the MLS and let all the other scavengers go find it for them. Go bring their sellers to that house or their buyers to put buyers and sellers together.
Yeah.
Right. So is it really not enough inventory in the market? Or is it that we have a bunch of people that don't like the realtor system? Because you know as well as I do, Peter, the reason why we aren't bashing the realtor system, it sounds like I've been doing it for 296 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is if you sit in a lot of houses like we do and you talk to a lot of people like we do, they tell you they don't like the realtors. What do they do? They always say, what do they do? And the question is posed, so you have to give them the answer. Well, they find you a buyer. That's their job, is to find you a buyer, nothing else. Find you a buyer, get a purchase sales contract.
Yeah.
That's it. That's their job. They get paid 6%. If you had a salesman in your business and you gave him 6% of your sales to find you new customers, how much would you pay him? As much money as you can get, right? Because he's getting a part of the sale. Mm-hmm. So if you sold a guitar lesson for $30 and had to give somebody 6% for bringing you a lead, would you do that?
Sure be worth it.
Right? So why do people complain about how much they got to pay a realtor? It's just that they're big numbers, right? But they're bringing them a buyer. They don't have to go find a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
But that dynamic is changing. The pandemic changed that because people did not want other people in their houses. So they found for 2 years or a year and a half, there were other ways the houses were being sold. And it's a new way. The dynamic has changed. Okay. So anyways, back to the podcast.
Where were we?
A little rant there. So
I followed you.
So see, this fear thing goes really deep. Right? Like I told you about my mom saying to me, take a lot of risk today, Billy. I was 35 years old when she finally confessed to me. I made her read the book. She was going to go into her own business, and I made her read the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Mm-hmm. And she calls me up. I was 35 years old. She calls me up and she's crying. I said, Mom, what's the matter? She goes, I have a confession to make to you. I said, oh, really? She said, yeah, me and your dad have always thought there's something wrong with you. We thought that you were like mentally challenged. She became a special ed teacher to help me because she thought that I was special ed. And for my years in school, she used to call me dumb and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Right? It took me a while to get over this. Right? And she really beat me down. Right? And at 35 years old, she said she read the book, the E-Myth, and she said, "There's nothing wrong with you. You're just a serial entrepreneur," she said. "Ever since you've been 9 years old, you've been like that." I'm like, there you go. So she should have said to me, "Take a lot of risk, Billy, because that's what I do."
Yeah.
You would have been in my wheelhouse, right? But she didn't. She told me to be careful, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mother's same thing. Every time you get in the car driveway, be careful. Be careful. Okay.
So it goes deep. So this whole fear thing goes deep, right? So that's all I'm saying. So here's why. I have a long time. I can't read my own writing. Oh, I have. That's pretty stupid. I go off on rants and I got to bring myself back to the paper and then I can't read it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have for a long time preached when you feel the fear, just push through it and do it anyways.
Mm.
That's me, right? Well, I realized that not everybody's like me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. But that has had little results for me, especially with my coaching and one-on-one calls. So I had to reverse engineer it so folks would just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
I'm not sure what Junior is saying. He's saying, could you explain what acronym MIS means?
On MLS, multiple.
MLS. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pete.
Multiple listing service. That's where the houses are listed on the internet, so they can all see it. In the old days, you go to the general store and you just list them on a board, and people go see what houses are for sale. Now it's MLS. Multiple listing service.
MLS is the software that they all go to buy and sell houses. It's a common software all over the country. There's zones to it for different counties and cities and stuff like that, but it's called the multiple listing service, and it's their Craigslist or their.
Well, it's like their Zillow. For us, we look at Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com, but they have their own special professional one. We have the consumer version. We just look at each other's info. But they'll also put their houses on Zillow too, don't they?
Well, nowadays the MLS scrapes it. Well, the Zillow scrapes the MLS.
Yeah. So it's on. It's on. They put it there too.
All right. Cool. I hope that helped Junior or JR. All right. So for a long time I preached when you feel fear, just push through it and just do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But that has had little results for me, so I had to reverse engineer it so folks would just do it. That's when I figured it out. When we take a change in unfamiliar, let me do this correctly. So when we take a journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a chance in change,
mm-hmm.
and we're walking on unfamiliar territory, or put ourselves into an uncertainty because we're not sure, especially of the future or how it's going to turn out. This is the point where many of us will often stop moving ahead. It's not comfortable.
Yep.
So you don't know how it's going to turn out. So you freeze. Now, if you back this all the way up, right? You're welcome, JR. So if you back this all the way up, which is because of this new style of coaching, which, by the way, my coaching group is not a coaching group anymore. It's an internship.
Mm-hmm.
So we come in there and we work on my leads, live leads together. There's texting, there's opening callers, and my coaching clients are my internship. So I have this handful of guys, there's, I think, 15 guys or 5 girls that work on my leads. So we're buying houses. You're actually partnering with me, and I'm guiding you through the deals.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where all this content is coming from, is doing that every single week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not like, oh, go call your leads and let me know what happens. No, now it's like, call these 3 leads and it's going to be recorded and I'm going to listen to the recording so I know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
or text your people this, and then they text it. Like I'm going through that right now. I have a couple people that are texting and they're doing it wrong.
Oh, really?
They think they're doing it right, but they're doing it wrong.
Ooh.
So we got to fix that, right? So the point is that I'm getting a lot of feedback from my training and from what's going on because I'm watching people use it.
Right.
And I'm seeing if there's any loopholes, which there haven't been too many of those in my system, or the way people are understanding on how to use it.
Sure.
And then misusing it, right?
Sure.
So all of this, so the thing is if you're, and this is what I've learned, is if you're unfamiliar with something, you have unfamiliar territory, you're going to walk slow, you're going to tread slow, you're going to be uncertain about the future.
Mm-hmm.
So the definition of anxiety to me is not certain how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Not certain of the future. Anxiety, the definition of anxiety is not sure how the future is going to turn out. So you're worried about it. You're nervous about it.
Right.
Because you don't have a clear path, which is being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, all of this brings me back to the beginning of this podcast. So many of us shortcut the way we want to live our lives by choosing the comfortable way. Right. So let's talk about how we can be comfortable with making real estate deals. That's how I got to fix it. I can't tell you don't be fearful because for me to do that, it would be a long runway. We'd have to maybe do whatever, handle whatever, either, counseling or whatever you got to do. Right. Well, that's too long of a runway. And I don't want to do that. I don't want people to wait for them to go fix their psyche that took them 35 years to be in a certain way. And now all of a sudden I'm telling them in 35 minutes to just, forget it.
Yeah.
Don't think that way.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, what we got to do is we got to talk about how they can be comfortable with making real estate deals and know how to handle them. So you are always protecting the downside or the horror of the bad deals.
Yeah. So the what ifs.
Yeah.
What if?
So let's talk about this amazing. So we're going to talk about a couple things. So let's just start off with this. So I'm going to ad hoc some of this. I have a lot of notes here, but I'm going to ad hoc it because I was trying to write it and my mind was rushing faster than my hand in writing. So I'm just going to kind of ad hoc the rest of the podcast. Okay.
Okay.
So let's talk about this amazing and very underutilized. And please make sure you emphasize in my voice the underutilized portion of this conversation. It is very underutilized. And that's called an option. It is very underutilized. So what is an option? Now, I'm going to get in that minute, but I promise you this. Once you fully grasp how to use one of these devices and the other couple things I'm going to talk about on how to protect you from the downside, you'll start to make offers immediately. Because then you'll know at least there's a default of how it could end if you decide.
Right.
Because there's an absolute definite exit strategy for every one of these that we're going to talk about. Okay, so it's kind of like in the old days they used to race cars on dirt tracks, kind of like motorcycles do now, right?
Yeah.
And you could always just drive off the track and out into the field and you were safe. Right? Nowadays they got concrete walls there, so you can't exactly do that. Right? But you know what I mean? It's like swimming, and you always know you can just put your feet down and stand up. Right? So here's why. Here's why the option is the first thing we need to talk about. So by definition, what is an option? It's what is a real estate option? Right? And I talk about this a lot, and don't dismiss what I'm going to tell you right now, thinking that I've told you this before, because if you're not doing deals and you're not using options, then you didn't fully grasp the idea. Okay?
Sure.
So the definition of an option is having the right to buy the real estate, but not the obligation to buy. So you have the right to buy, not the obligation to buy.
Yep.
Now let that sink in. It's a double-edged sword. You're getting the seller to say, yes, I will sell for this number, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't find a buyer, you won't have to perform.
You don't have to. And is that an exclusive right? Or usually exclusive?
No.
Sometimes exclusive?
Well, it's exclusive when we attach it to a lease because they're living in
Okay.
the house.
Yeah, but up to that point,
No.
can someone else come along, and someone else could have come along and buy the house?
Yep.
The seller could sell it on his own.
That's why we say you can, if you have an option with a seller, it's okay to go get a realtor.
Yeah.
And let the race begin.
But it's a pretty tight right. Like, not people aren't going to show up out of the woodwork and buy the house. You have it pretty much covered. Like another investor wouldn't come in and buy it. So it's pretty tight that it's close to exclusive. It's small. It's just you mostly.
Right. So go back to what I said. What I said the problem is today.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that the seller doesn't know how to advertise it. So if you learn how to advertise the property, you can outperform the realtor because the only place the realtor is going is on the MLS. Now, the MLS, the multiple listing service, will obviously promote it.
Yeah.
But you can, if you follow some of my stuff, you can promote it a lot better than the realtor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it really comes down to advertising. But here's the point: if you give an option has to be legally bound with what they call denomination, right? Legal denomination. I think that's the word. I might be saying that wrong.
Yeah, paper money.
It has to be paper money. So the least amount you could put down is $1, and you can put down as much as you want. So I've done that. You put down $1. You can put down $10. I usually put down 100 just so the customer knows I'm for real. But that's the only thing you have at risk. See, here's the thing that you have to pay attention to. The only thing you need to be afraid of is losing money. So if you have a document that says you don't have to buy it and you don't put any money in the deal, what are you afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
Go test it out. Let's try this thing. Right? It's like somebody saying to me, "You want to learn how to drive, Bill? Okay, here's my 2022 Corvette. Go have at it."
Yeah, go on the freeway first.
Yeah,
start there.
Okay,
start there.
If it's not my car and he doesn't care that I'm going to smash it, what's the big deal?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a bad example, but you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what an option's saying, right? So what I'm going to say to my seller, what I'm saying to my seller is this, okay? I'm not, and this is for Johnny too, by the way. I'm going to come right back to John's comment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what an option agreement says, in my mind, okay? I'm not sure if your price or your terms are good. They're a little bit higher than I want them to be, or I'm not quite sure of them. I'm not sure I can find a buyer.
Right.
I'm not sure if your dysfunctional house can sell. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if the location is good. I'm not sure if the market is good. I'm not sure I can find a buyer, here's what you're really saying, is I'm not sure that your house will be popular with buyers. I'm not sure because of the price, or I'm not sure because of the layout of the house or the location. There's something about the house that I'm not sure of.
Yep.
Okay. So this is what you're thinking in your head. Well, I'm not sure if I can do this deal. I'm not sure if I can sell this deal. I'm not sure if I can find a buyer. I'm not sure of something. So let me go out to the market and let me show it to some buyers and let the buyers vote with their wallet.
Yeah.
So let me go have a vote. Let me go get a popularity vote with your house. Mm-hmm. And let's see what the public says. Let's see what the market says. Let's see what the people in that neighborhood says. Let's see what the people in that city or that state or whatever your market is.
Yeah.
Let's see what they say. Let's get some people to walk through the house. Let's show the house. Let's get some feedback on whether this house is good or not, if the price is good or not. So John says that he's having trouble with the math. Well, here's the deal. sign an option agreement and go put it on the market and let the seller and the buyer figure out what the deal is worth, because what the buyer is willing to pay is what the house is worth.
Yeah.
Stop trying to do math. Just sign an option agreement. In the beginning, if you're a rookie and you're not doing a lot of deals, even if the house is worth $200,000 and they're asking $210,000, say, okay, can I sign an option agreement? Will you give me 90 days to go sell it? Put it on the market for $215,000, make yourself $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Or $3,000 or $1,000. Here's the point. Make nothing. Make nothing. It's worth it for you to get through a transaction to see how it works.
It's cheaper than paying for the education.
Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
If you're incorrect, Mr. Seller, this is what you're saying. If you're incorrect, Mr. Seller, well, I don't have the obligation to execute this agreement.
Yeah.
That's what an option agreement is saying. So it's saying, I'm not sure. I don't like, I'm not sure of the price. I'm not sure of the house. I'm not sure of the location. I'm not sure of something.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure of the market. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. In other words, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do. I've never done a deal before. I'm not sure how to do a deal. So you sign an option agreement because you now have the right to sell the property. You're not taking anything away from the seller, because they can go hire a realtor if they want. Just tell the realtor that you have an option with me, and then that they need to exclude us from their contract. And if I bring you a buyer, then there you go. You're not letting anybody down. You're not being dishonest. You're not being anything. You're going to go put it on the market, which by the way, nowadays, just Facebook Marketplace is enough. You put it on Facebook Marketplace, even Craigslist. You put it on Zillow. You could put it in any place. There's a lot of places to advertise this house. You could just put signs around the neighborhood.
Yeah. You could just tell 5 people.
You could go on melissadata.com. Melissadata.com. And you could put your zip code. They have a mailing list. You can buy a mailing list off of melissadata.com. You could put your zip code, the zip code of the house in there, and do a half a mile radius, and you probably get a few thousand names. What they do is they give you addresses and names of people that are on the mail route, the postal routes, the postal routes of the post office. It's the way the mailman walks. And for like a couple thousand names, you could pay like $18 and get a couple thousand names. And you could just sit at your desk with a yellow notepad and say, hey, I have this option agreement with this guy over at 123 Main Street. You know anybody might want to buy it? Call me. For $18 and then whatever the stamp cost. See, this is the scarcity. See, you don't think of these things because you haven't put yourself in a position to have to buy a house. You haven't raised the necessity level in your world to have to do it because you didn't put something under contract. But you're not putting anything under contract. You're just saying, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm not sure if I can do this. Let's sign this option agreement and give me a chance. And if I sell it, I'll bring you this much. If I don't, then oh well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, one of the things I figured working with you and doing all these podcasts was that, a real estate transaction has numerous steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever it is, 10, whatever it is, right? And there's many of them that have zero repercussions, zero. There's only a certain point where, okay, now you're on the hook.
Right.
And that's if you sign a purchase and sales that you're going to pay all cash or something. But until you put all cash, you're just not. So I know how I look at it and how I got this far, or however far this is. I just figured this is all practice.
Yeah.
My first day on the phone, I was just practicing.
Yep.
And I didn't care if it was yes or no. I just needed to practice.
Totally.
It's a little bit my comparison. I've thrown this out a couple of times, is like when people practice buying and selling stocks by just, if I bought today, what would happen tomorrow? Yeah. And there's nothing to lose. You just, if I, and then if you're right for a couple of months, you go, maybe I'll actually pay for something now. And if you suck, don't do it.
It's a great analogy. Ralph Phillips says options minimize risk. No, Ralph, they do not. They do not minimize risk. They eliminate risk. There is no risk. It's not minimizing them at all. I'm picking on you, Ralph, but there is no risk. Absolutely. The only thing you're risking is the $1, the $10, or the $100 you give the seller. That's it.
Okay. Boys and girls, figure it this way. What risk does a real estate agent have? The realtor?
Exactly.
What risk do they have?
Right.
Do you ever see any one of them nervous?
Yeah.
They couldn't care less. Not that they don't care. Sometimes they get involved with people and they like to help them. They get along. My broker's great. We had a nice time. But if it doesn't sell, oh, sorry, it didn't sell. 6 months later, goodbye.
Yeah. Oh, we should reduce the price by $10,000. That's what their first. All right. So now get this, Peter. Here is what I am saying. Your uncertainty or fear is, am I going to be able to sell this house if I obligate myself to it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now watch this. With an option agreement, it gives you a chance to find your buyer first, like you were saying before, and then put the deal together. So you don't put any skin in the game until you find your buyer first.
Mm-hmm.
So you do the deal backwards. Like we go through this all the time in our coaching group, and I coach with another guy, a few other guys. I help them with their coaching groups. And just think of it this way. Think of it this way. Oh my God, I get goosebumps when I think about this. If you were to sign an option agreement with someone and you put it on the market, right now, do you think people would respond to your stuff, to your ads?
Right now, oh hell yeah.
Because there's one house, 20 buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now watch this. Even if you did it manually, we use REI Reply, which is $50 a month. It's a CRM, a customer relationship management tool that we use. And which, by the way, I'm in the middle of developing my own, so pretty soon we'll have my own. And what's the name of it going to be, Peter? Do you remember?
Something cash flow.
Oh, yeah, you know.
I keep losing it.
Yeah, it's late. It's going to be called the Lazy Cash Flow Machine.
Lazy cash flow machine.
See,
I keep forgetting that, Bill, because I'm only a little bit lazy, not too lazy.
Okay. So here's the point: is you put a house on the market and you get responses. Those responses are buyers. So you build a buyer's list. Now, imagine if you put a house on the market and you got 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 people on your buyer's list. The next time you talk to a seller, you say to them, you know what? I have 100 buyers on my list. I'm going to put the list to them first. Do you think that would convince a seller that they should talk to you or they should sign this agreement with you that costs them nothing? Nothing. You have a buyer's list because you put one house. Now, what happens if you put 2 houses on there? What happens if you put 3 houses on there? What happens if you had 1,000 people? I think Sean's got something like, my other partner, Sean's got something like 400 people on a buyer's list for just selling a couple of houses.
Bill, in today's market, you could put an ad that says, I buy houses, I need a buyer's list. And you would have 500 people apply to get in line to buy a house.
Yeah.
Period. You don't even have to have a house. Guaranteed. Exactly. Guaranteed.
All right. So with an option, it gives you a chance to go find your buyer first. Then you put the deal together. So really you're afraid of the future, like what's going to happen if I buy this house? How am I going to sell it? Well, don't do that. Go sell the house first and then fulfill the order with your option.
You know, I used to wonder if buying a house was harder or selling the house was harder. And that might be what people are worried about. What if I buy it? Geez, what if I can't sell it?
Right.
But it's completely the opposite. Not even in this market.
Buyers are easy.
Buyers are really easy because of the way we sell.
Yeah.
Your last house would have 300 applicants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa.
That again.
Yeah. So that's not the hard part. It's not.
So like what you said earlier, that's what realtors do, right? They sign a contract that says, I'm going to go find you a buyer. And then once I do, I'm going to sign this thing called a purchase and sales contract.
Yep.
Now let's talk about that for a second. Suppose you did sign a purchase and sales contract with someone and you give them a deposit. Normally it's $1,000. I recommend you do that. I recommend you do much less than that.
Oh, yeah.
But you give them a deposit. There are so many weasel clauses in a purchase and sales contract that it'll make you almost spit. Okay? There are so many weasel clauses. You can get out of that contract just by coughing, by sneezing, by tripping over your own cord in your computer. Okay? You can get out of that thing like so easily. Number one. Number two, they're assignable. So go find your buyer and give the contract to them. It's what we call wholesaling.
Mm-hmm.
We always talk about wholesaling on these cheap houses. You could wholesale a fully priced house and get somebody to give you $1,000 for a contract because you did a really good job negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that. Okay. Now you have to imagine this option on steroids. Okay. It can be attached to any other document. Like, for example, a lease.
Mm.
So options could be for 90 days. I don't suggest you do less than 90 days, but you could do 30 days. But
Mm-hmm.
options should be 90 days. I mean, the realtor asked for 6 months, so why not you do 3 months?
Yeah.
Right? So you sign this option, you can sign it for 90 days or 90 years.
Yeah.
There are no rules other than what you write on the document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, for the nuclear version, you can get, like I said, you can get this option with or without a lease attached from a seller. And when you're either running out of time with the option or you get nervous, you could just assign it. You don't even have to finish the deal.
Mm.
Just find someone like me that will say, "Yeah, I'll take it from you."
Mm-hmm.
And you have this 1-page document that's not even 1 page, it's like 3 or 4 paragraphs that just says, I'm assigning my share of this option to you, Bill.
Yeah.
Right? So how hard is it for you to go to a RIA meeting or go online in a forum or just put, I have an option agreement I'd like to sell to somebody for $100?
Yeah, because if you're new at it, somebody like you that's been around for a while has a little more savvy or experience or a buyer's list or something or knows what to do with it or can pay for or can keep it or something that
Right.
you may not know as a rookie. So don't think just because you can't, someone else can't. They
Right.
could.
Right.
And then if they can't, it's an option. You just go home.
You
The realtor, 6 months up, bye-bye.
Yeah,
or the realtor goes, hey, you want to do another 6 months? We go, hey, you want to do another 90 days?
Right. You know what? No, I'm going to tell you what realtors do. This is a famous trick of theirs.
Yeah.
About 3 weeks before they're gonna do an open house.
Oh.
Or they'll tell you the week before your contract is up, I have a buyer. You want to re-sign?
And what's the name of the buyer?
Exactly. And they'll probably even give you the name of somebody, but they're probably not. They may not be qualified.
No, come on, they don't make this stuff up, do they?
Yeah, well, you know,
not the good ones, not our friends.
So, like I said, because you sign an option with a seller, you become an equity share in the property.
Yeah.
I've said this before in other places. I want to make sure you're clear. And you're considered a very minor or a minority partner. So when you sign an option, you get an equity share. It's not a controlling equity share. It's not something that you can make decisions and steal the house from the seller. It's a very minute. The law doesn't say you need to have a large equity share. It just says that you have the right, the seller's giving you the right, and you have an equity share. Okay?
Yep.
And because of that, you don't need to have a license because now you're selling your own property.
But I just thought of something silly, and it's really just silly. You know how you look at property and it says like $159 square foot, $177 square foot. So you go to the seller, so I'd like to buy a square foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's 107. How much do you? I own a square foot of that house.
There you go.
Then you can divide it into the square footage. You know your percentage. I own 0.4%, 0.0. Yeah, sure. I own a whole square foot of that piece of property. Like a condo, I own 130, 300, 1 over 365th of that.
There you go.
One a year, 1 week a year. I got 100, 1 out of 365.
Oh, timeshare. You're talking about timeshare.
Yeah, what did I say? Condo? Yeah, timeshare. Yeah.
So that's where Nelson Rockefeller said, the best way to control wealth or keep wealth is to own nothing and control everything. So we don't own this thing, right? Now, here's the punchline, and I'm going to go off for a few minutes on this. I'm going to just rattle. Okay, I'm not going to explain things. I'm just going to rattle, and I'm sorry if because I have rookies on here and I have seasoned guys on here as well. So this is going to be for my seasoned guys. I'm just going to rattle. Okay, so here's the punchline of the podcast. How do you protect the downside, or how do you avoid risk? Don't put a deed in your name. It's like I have a lot of people come to me and say, hey, Bill, when should I get an LLC? A limited liability company. When should I get a company? And here's my answer. When you put a deed in your name.
Yep.
You could do slot deals, which is a sandwich lease option transaction. So basically what you're doing is you're getting a lease with an option from your seller, and you're transferring it to your buyer. Mm-hmm. Joe McCall did a really good job by saying, he renamed it by saying wholesale lease option deals. Because that's what you're doing. You're getting a lease option, a lease with an option from your seller for 2 years. Minimum 2 years is what we do, right? For 2 years, the seller doesn't have to pay all the closing costs, which could rank up to 12 to 15%. So they don't pay the selling cost. You get your buyer to pay the selling cost. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, isn't as much as 12 or 15% because we do most of the work and we reduce that with our labor.
Sure.
Okay. So you get the contract and then you go find your buyer. You're not obligated. You don't have to buy it because you're using an option. You're not stuck with that deal.
Yep.
Right. But you're helping your seller because they owe $100,000 and it's worth $100,000, and they would normally have $10,000 or $12,000 or $15,000 in closing costs, and you're helping them avoid those closing costs. You're helping them a lot. Mm-hmm. It's only because of the option that makes that work. The option is the epicenter. It is the center of. It is the pinnacle of these transactions. Yep. In today's market, I'm having trouble with this myself and with my clients because I don't use these very often. But so what if you go give somebody their full asking price at an option and ask them for 30 days, like I said earlier? So what? Go do a transaction and learn how to do it. So I'm sure, I am positive, if they're asking $210 and it's worth $200, you can ask $210 and make $1,000. You could ask $211 and make $1,000. Yeah. Probably more like $215 in today's economy and make $5,000. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, at least you'll get through the transaction enough that you'll know where you need help and where you don't need help. So when you come to somebody like me, you're like, I had this deal and here's what happened. Oh, here's where so you did all these things right. Here's the weakness. Let's work on that. Yep. Right? It takes the fear away because you're minimizing the risk. There is no risk. Well, like I said to Ralph before, there is no risk. It's not minimizing the risk. There is no risk other than the $10, the $1, $10, or $100. That's it. So the way to not risk your money in real estate or risk yourself in real estate is don't put money in or don't make promises you can't keep.
And don't sign a deed.
So this is what I'm saying. That's a promise you can't keep. If you put a deed in your name, you're saying, I promise to take all the responsibility for this property, no matter what. If I get sued, I pay the taxes, I pay the water, anything that's connected to this property, I'm taking 100% responsibility for it, and I'll do that. Yeah. That's what you're freaked out about. What I'm saying is, don't put money in. So you put $1 in or $10 in or $100. And to me, $100 is not a lot of money. I mean, it's not, most people can swing $100.
Well, you're not going to worry about it. Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah, I can stay awake at night on it.
And don't make promises you can't keep. The promises you're making to the seller are, I'm going to go find you a seller. I'm going to go try to find you. I'm sorry. Let me do that again. I'm going to go try to find you a buyer. That's the promise the realtor's giving them. Mm-hmm. You're doing the same thing the realtor's doing. And all you're going to do is just, that's the promise. You're not saying to them, I'm going to get you a buyer, I'm going to sell this house, or it's bought, it's closed, it's done. You can't do that. You tell them, I'm like a realtor, except I'm doing it for 3 months instead of doing it for 6 months. And if you want to get out of my contract, I'm not going to hold you liable to just send me a note saying it so I can stop advertising it.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were like a realtor and you were your own MLS, and all of a sudden you had 10 of these properties, 10 of these options, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just went out and got 10 of them. And now as buyers are coming in, well, what about this property? What about that property? What about this property? Just like a realtor.
Oh, now you get 10 offers on a house. You got 9 unhappy people who lost.
So you send them to another house.
Now they're happy to at least have another chance.
You're like the realtor. You have no risk. You have nothing. And you didn't have to go through all the training. You don't have a license. You don't have anything that anybody can punish you for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So here's another amazing thing. Assignments. Imagine if you did, so we have a slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option. Then we have the option deal, which is where you just do what we just talked about. Then we have rent to own. Mm-hmm. Rent to own is very much like a slot deal. It's a sandwich lease option transfer, except your seller is going to give to you 15% worth of equity and 20 or 25% worth of cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually they do that because they don't want to do the landlording, which, by the way, there is no landlording, because what happens is you have the buyer do all the landlording.
Yeah, but they think about it at night, even though these promised, people who've had the house for a while, who've had tenants, they just, the shoe's going to drop.
Right.
They just think about it at night.
What we do is we tell the seller that we're going to take all the landlording obligations and we assign those to your buyer. Now, the simple solution or the simple description of that is, okay, so if you went on vacation and you rented a car, would you wash the car? Would you wax the car? Would you change the tires? Would you tune it up? Would you change the oil? The answer is no, right?
Sure.
Because you're renting the car. Mm-hmm. But if you own the car, would you wash it? Would you wax it? Would you change the tires? Would you change the oil? Yes, because you want to take care of it. Yep. So that's the difference between a renter in an apartment or a lease option person in a house, because they're putting down, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 in for the right to buy this house. So you're paying $100 for the rights to buy from the seller, and you're selling those rights to your buyer for 10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not buying and selling real estate at this point. You're buying and selling the rights. See, it's kind of funny because I'm doing some SEO, search engine optimization, right, which you're aware of. And I was on my phone with my coach yesterday, and he's telling me, well, your videos, and he's talking all about the videos, about how I got to change the videos, and I got to do that. And I stopped him. I'm like, well, no, whoa, stop. It's not about the video. The video is the placeholder to get me in number one position on the page. That's all the video's there for.
Mm.
It's the same exact thing with the house. The house has nothing to do with what we do here.
Yeah.
It's just a placeholder so you can write paperwork. Because you're buying the paperwork for $10 or $100 and you're selling it for $10,000. The house is just a placeholder so you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Until you take a deed. Then it changes.
Mm.
So a slot deal, an option deal, and a rent-to-own deal are all not taking deeds. They're just placeholders. The house is just a placeholder so you could get these documents bought and sold.
Mm-hmm.
You're buying and selling the documents, not the house. You're buying and selling the rights to buy this house. You're never buying the house. There is no downside because you had the right to sell it, but not the obligation to buy it.
Yeah.
And when you figure that out, there should be no fear. Now, I know what's going to come up next. I'm going to get some support tickets. So it's kind of like this. Well, I'm afraid to talk to the seller.
Mm.
Well, if you just listen to this podcast a few times, you'll feel better. But I know that won't work. So let's do this. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, flippinghousesforrookies.com, and you click on the top right-hand side, it says free stuff. There's a page on there with over 26 different things that are for free. Okay, that you use for real estate. They're all creative real estate free tools.
Yeah.
One of them tools is called the Lease Option Explained. Mm-hmm. It's a 5-page document that I created for my rookies, so that when they say, and this is how Naomi had me do this when Naomi was working for me some time ago. She's like, what if somebody doesn't have a website? How do you send them information? So the 5-page document you can turn it into a PDF document. It's probably a PDF when you download it. You'll have to fix that. But here's what happens. This 5-page document is a lease option fully explained. If you downloaded that thing and hand wrote it 10 times, it's a 5-page document. If you hand wrote it 10 times, and then you recorded it into your cell phone, you reading it, the 5-page document, you reading the 5-page document, and then listen to that recording 15 or 20 times, within a week, you would be fully comfortable with talking to somebody about a lease option or options.
Yeah.
And if you haven't bought a house, or if you've been doing this for 2 years, studying for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and you haven't bought a house or you haven't come close on a deal, it's because you haven't done what we're talking about today. You, first of all, just download that lease option explained, handwrite it 10 times. It probably will take you, an hour? Maybe 2. Every single morning when you're drinking your coffee, right? When you're there, you go. Rocky. He said, I'm ready. I'm reading it now, and I'm on the 3rd handwritten version. Go Rocky. Go Rocky. Well done, dude. Well done. Right? So I'm going to ask this question to Rocky. Just respond with what that's doing for you. Do you just respond, and I'll put it up on the screen. Just respond. You've written it 3 times. What has that done for you? Just 3 times. And then I'm going to keep talking, and then you'll respond, and then we'll end off. So,
Bill, you know what's funny? I don't know how many times you said that. How few people have even bothered to do that? Well, that's not what I need. I need to buy a house or whatever it is. Like any little step that you can do, just do a step. You know, there's no like on and off switch for this. How long did it take you to learn everything you know, Bill? Well,
30 years.
Yeah, and I'm still learning. We're still learning, but
Rocky said he's understanding it. Of course.
Good.
Right?
And if you understand it, then people can ask you any question they want.
And now we're going back to what we were talking about, right? So when I say just do it, now Rocky will just do it. He won't be afraid of talking to somebody, because now what's going to happen is it's going to be a challenge for him. What's going to be is, when I talk to him, I wonder what questions they're going to ask. And oh yeah, by the way, Pete, tell our listeners right now what happens when we role play in our coaching group. It's never the way the customers talk.
Oh yeah,
never the way the sellers and the buyers talk. What happens?
What I wanted to say earlier, I'm glad you reminded me. People think that you're going to talk to somebody, they're going to be mean or annoying or combative in some way. But in the first place, you eliminate all the suspects. You don't talk to somebody who doesn't want to sell the house. You're going to talk to somebody who does want to sell the house. So, like, if you go in a store and you say, I'd like an ice cream, do they berate you? Do they pound on you? Or do they say, what flavor, sir?
Right.
It's like that kind of relationship. You're helping them. So they're very nice. I mean, how many phone conversations do we have that end with, hey, it was nice talking to you, Bill. It was nice talking to you, Pete. We have these on recordings. Doesn't mean we bought or sell a house, but just talking to us is a pleasant little thing. And you should be pleasant to talk to. If you're not, go practice. You should be just worth talking to.
Here's the thing, and I know that we got to end because we're an hour and 3 minutes, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really important to hear this. Your human communication skills and manners work way more than the sentences you say.
Yeah.
If I had to weigh them, I would say your manners and your way you talk to people is about 85% of the deal.
Yeah.
It's not the magic words, and it's not the math.
No, it's politeness. It's your emotional level. If they say something like, I had the guy, we missed a call, right? Thursday, I'm 8:00. I'm on the phone. I'll talk to you and Bill, and he's not there. Like, what the hell? Makes me look like a dummy. He had to take his daughter to the hospital with kidney stones. So the next conversation was something pleasant, like, I worked with a nutrition doctor. See if you can give her some vinegar and water and drink it. Oh, thank you so much. I'll see if that works. You ask them, how's your daughter? You ask them.
Customer service.
Yeah, just be what you call it. Just be human.
Human, right? So let me answer John
Yeah.
Patterson's,
Yeah.
and then we'll go. So John says, going back to not getting a deed in my name, I'm actually working on a seller finance deal. No deed in my name? Question mark. Or with an option buying. All right. So John, here's what I would do. I'm sorry for the rest of you that don't know what this is. There is a podcast. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, on the top right-hand side, it says podcast. When you click on that podcast link, it opens up all the podcasts, and there's a search engine there because there's almost 300 podcasts, so you get lost in there. So go in there and type in land contract or contract for deed, and you'll understand what I'm going to talk about in a minute. Okay. So John, what I would do is I wouldn't sign a lease option. There's a pecking order of responsibility. So it starts off at the bottom with option, then it goes up to lease option, then it goes to agreement for deed, and then it goes to deed. The higher you go, the more responsibility you have. The reason why I would use an agreement for deed or a land contract, they're both the same thing. They're just names in different parts of the country. The reason why I would do that is because of this. When you write a land contract or an agreement for deed, the banks consider that a mortgage or a loan. So down the road, you can actually go refinance that property if you so wish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because here's how you eliminate all fear. You do not personally guarantee anything. So if you're putting loans in your name and guaranteeing them, that is the worst leverage point for you. That's how you get in trouble. So what you want to do is you don't want to guarantee loans. You don't want to guarantee bank loans. Even subject to, you're not guaranteeing the bank loans. So here's what I'm saying, John. If you write this thing in an agreement for deed, okay, you could do one of two things. If you have an agreement for deed, you can sell it with a lease option. Now your tenant is going to the tenant is going to buy from you the property and pay rent, and you're going to use the rent to pay down the mortgage, which is the agreement for deed, because on an agreement for deed, you're going to get principal reduction. So you'll buy down the mortgage. Okay. With a lease option with your seller, you won't buy down the mortgage unless you add the right language. You can do it, but it's better to do it in an agreement for deed. Mm-hmm. So number one, you're gonna get their seller to give you an agreement for deed, and then you're gonna sell on a lease option. Or if they give you enough money, you can assign that agreement for deed that you got with your seller, assign it to your buyer if they give you enough money. So in other words, you could do a slot deal with an agreement for deed. Meaning you can wholesale your deal. So that's another thing. So a lot of people are talking about how the market's so high and all that kind of stuff. You could actually get somebody, you can overpay. Like we were talking the other day about a deal. So it was a $525,000 deal. Seller wanted $565,000. Mm-hmm. So we were giving the guy advice in the coaching call. Well, just go buy it for $565,000, and then put it on the market for $700,000 or $790,000. I'm sorry, $690,000 or $700,000. Mm-hmm. Here's the deal: if you put that on, if you sell that to your buyer on an agreement for deed, okay. Yep. Now 2 years down the road, the buyer doesn't need to go get a new loan. They can refinance because the agreement for deed is considered a mortgage, and they could take out the first position mortgage, which is the agreement for deed. Mm-hmm. So now if you sell on a lease with an option, they have to go get a new loan. If you sell on an agreement for deed, they can refinance and get the money, and it'll be better. Yep. Okay, so I hope I answered your question, John. I know I got a little bit technical there, but if not, just send me a support ticket and I'll help you. Okay. All right, Peter. So avoid the downside in every creative real estate deal legally and profitably. Here's what I did. In the link in the description, I put our WhatsApp group that's called Let's Talk Real Estate. So for free, I think there's like 150 people in there or whatever. So John said, thanks, very helpful. Another golden nugget. You're welcome. So in the link of this description, wherever you're watching us or listening to us, there is a link to our private WhatsApp group. It's just my group. It's called Let's Talk Real Estate. And that's a good place, especially if you have fear and you want to get talked off the cliff every once in a while. That's the place to go, because people go in there and we can help you talk yourself off the cliff. Like, I have this deal, or I'm afraid to do this, or I'm afraid to do that. Go in there and let us help you. Let us talk you off the cliff. Okay?
Yeah.
Yet again, thanks for being with me. Thanks for all the support you guys give me, all the listeners. Thanks for everything. Make sure on all the podcasts you listen to us, make sure you subscribe to us, and make sure you leave us a testimonial or give us some sort of a review. Okay? Over and out. We'll talk to you on podcast number 297. We're getting there.